To me, it didn't sway me because if you look at it, I got the ultimate achievement as a basketball player. Right, making it to the Hall.
T-Mac is right. For the vast majority of the players that play in the league, the highest honor that you can receive is to be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Since it's such a high honor, it shouldn't be easy for just anyone to get inducted. However, the Honors Committee has been more lenient as far as which players can qualify. For example, three-time All-Star Charlie Scott made the Hall of Fame in 2018. He was part of the 1976 Boston Celtics team that won the title. In the following year, seven-time All-Star Jack Sikma made the Hall of Fame, and he was part of the 1979 Seattle SuperSonics team that won the title. We're talking great players, don't get me wrong, but for some of us, they're not exactly what comes to mind when we think of a Hall of Fame player. So that gives us a little leeway to make this short list of the top players that have waited way too long to make the Hall of Fame. Now keep in mind that I'm only including players that have gone at least 5 years since being eligible. The whole point of this list is to include players that have been overlooked by the committee and that have been snubbed repeatedly by less deserving players. So let's start with Larry Nance. The case against him is that he's only a 3-time All-Star and he's never been selected to be in the All-NBA. He was selected to 3 All-NBA defensive teams, but he was never considered as one of the top 5 or 6 players at the forward position. That's also the main reason why I snubbed him from my top 100 players in my book. He just wasn't the most statistically dominant player during his time. Not that there's anything wrong with averaging over 20 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks in your prime. He just had some serious competition at the forward position. We're talking players like Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Kevin McHale, Bernard King, and Dominique Wilkins. So it makes sense that he was overlooked. But here's the case for him. From an analytical standpoint, he has proven to be immensely valuable to all the teams that he has played for in his 14-year career. Check out where he currently ranks all-time in some major categories. He ranks 38th all-time in career offensive rating, 44th in value over replacement player rating, 45th in box plus minus, 67th in win shares, 73rd in defensive win shares, and 78th in offensive win shares. He also currently ranks in the top 20 in career blocks. So if the advanced metrics are a big factor for you, then he should be somewhere in your top 100 players of all time. And he has proven that he can be a valuable piece to a championship contending team. Take for example, in 1984, when he helped the Phoenix Suns make an unexpectedly deep run in the playoffs, and they reached the conference finals. Then in 1992, the Cleveland Cavaliers also reached the conference finals. Who was the best player for those Cavaliers teams? You hear a lot of different answers, but that 1992 season, when they had their deepest playoff run of that era, Larry Nance proved to be their most valuable player, as the numbers indicate. And there's one more fun fact that I'm going to throw out there to show what Larry Nance was capable of. In 1987, he scored a career-high 45 points on 68% shooting, he pulled down 15 rebounds, and he blocked 7 shots. That is a monster stat line. In fact, he is only one of 4 players in history that has recorded at least 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 blocks in a game. So listen, I get why he's been overlooked. But with everything we know now about the analytics, maybe we've overlooked this player. If he's good enough to be in some people's top 100 players of all time, then he should make it to the Hall of Fame. Next up, we have Kevin Johnson. The next 3 players that I'm going to talk about are one of the top 100 players of all time, according to the all-time greatest NBA book. Kevin Johnson made the book because his prime was just too good. Let's look at his numbers first. He currently ranks 6th all-time in career assists per game. He also ranks 22nd all-time in career offensive rating, 32nd in offensive box plus minus, 40th in box plus minus, 48th in win shares per 48 minutes, and 55th in offensive win shares. As the numbers indicate, Kevin Johnson was one of the most dangerous offensive players of his generation. There are very few players in the history of the league that can get others involved while also lighting up the scoreboard like Kevin Johnson. In fact, he is only one of 4 players to average over 20 points and 10 assists for 3 consecutive seasons. The other 3 players are Oscar Robertson, Isaiah Thomas, and Russell Westbrook. Now, the one season that I want to point out that also demonstrates how great he was during his prime is the 1988/89 season. He averaged 20.4 points per game and 12.2 assists per game. That is currently the 13th highest assist per game average for a single season in league history. So he's a good enough talent to make the Hall of Fame. The eye test and the numbers all back that up. But most importantly, he showed that he could play a big role for a title contending team. From 1989 to 1992, the Suns won between 53 to 55 games for that 4-year stretch, and they went to the conference finals 2 years in a row. Their most impressive playoff run came in 1990 when they shocked the NBA world by defeating Magic Johnson and the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers won 63 games that year and were the best team in the league. However, the Suns defeated the Lakers in 5 games. The reason was that the Lakers had no answers for Kevin Johnson. He led the team in scoring and produced the impressive stat line of 22 points per game on 47% shooting, 11.2 assists per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, and 2.8 steals per game. That includes scoring 30 points and dishing out 16 assists in Game 4. And then he closed the Lakers out on the road by scoring 37 points on 61% shooting. So that proved that Kevin Johnson was more than capable of being the most valuable piece to a title contending team. And then in 1993, he played a huge role on a team that is regarded as one of the greatest teams in NBA history to not win a title. In fact, I have that team as one of the 50 greatest teams of all time in my book. So he left an imprint on this league. We're talking about a player that went to the conference finals twice without a top 50 player on the team, and then he went to the finals 1 time. We also saw that he's in the top 10 in career assists per game, and the top 50 in 4 other major statistical categories. That sounds like a Hall of Fame player to me. So he's a top 3 snub for sure. Next up, we have Shawn Kemp. Unfortunately for the Rain Man, his dunking ability is the first thing that many fans think of when discussing his legacy. That can give the false impression that he's more style over substance. But let me assure you that he was a major reason why the Sonics experienced various dominating seasons in the 90s. Before we get to the team success portion of this discussion, let's first look at his career numbers. He's a 6-time All-Star. Now if you remember, that is only 1 less appearance than what Hall of Famer Jack Sigma has. Let's just keep that in mind. And he currently ranks 32nd all-time in career defensive rating and 42nd all-time in career defensive win shares. So we're talking about a supremely underrated two-way player. And that was largely due to his athleticism and his strong base, which made it hard for players to overpower him on the post. He could also switch off and guard quicker guards on the perimeter, and he was an underrated shot blocker. We're talking about a player that blocked 10 shots in a game once, so he could do a lot more than just dunk on your face. He added so much value to his team, and that resulted in a lot of dominant seasons. In 1993, the Sonics were 1 game away from reaching the finals. They pushed the Phoenix Suns to the limit in the conference finals, and they nearly pulled the upset. In the following season, the Sonics had one of the most dominant regular seasons in NBA history. They won 63 games and they had the best record in the league. I talked about that season in depth in one of my recent videos, and the link is at the top for you all to enjoy. It should be noted that Shawn Kemp was the best player on the team for those 2 seasons. Gary Payton had not taken that leap in his game yet, so Shawn Kemp should get credit for being the best player on a team that was a title contender in 1993 and was the best player on the best team in the league in 1994. And just like we mentioned for Kevin Johnson, Shawn Kemp also played a huge role on a team that is regarded as one of the greatest teams in NBA history to not win a title. In my book, I also have the 1996 Seattle SuperSonics as one of the top 50 teams of all time. During that playoff run, he outplayed Hakeem Olajuwon, who just came off one of the greatest playoff runs in NBA history the prior year. He went toe-to-toe with Karl Malone in the conference finals, and he outplayed Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman in the finals. Remember, the NBA was a big man's league during this time, and he proved that he was at the level as all of those legendary players. That's how great his peak was. Let's stop the disrespect and get this all-time great talent into the Hall of Fame. Last but not least, we have Chauncey Billups. It's barely been 5 years since Mr. Big Shot has been eligible to Hall of Fame, so he hasn't waited as long as the others. I honestly think it's only a matter of time before he'll get the call. If they let Ben Wallace in, then surely they'll let Chauncey Billups get in as well. But as of right now, I think he's the greatest player that is not in the Hall of Fame. He easily made the top 100 players in my book, and I think it's a no-brainer to get him into the Hall of Fame. The numbers are overwhelmingly in his favor. For example, he currently ranks all-time 27th in career offensive win shares, 42nd in offensive box plus minus, and 43rd in win shares and value over replacement player rating. Think about that last stat. He's in the top 50 all-time in career win shares, and among point guards, he ranks 8th all-time. But I mean, is it any surprise that he ranks that high? He led his team to over 50 wins for 8 straight years. That was from 2003 to 2010. And in that 8-year span, his teams either went to the conference finals or they went to the finals. We're talking about one of the greatest winners to ever play that position. And that's not to mention that he won a title, he won finals MVP, he has 5 All-Star appearances, 1 top 5 finish in MVP voting. I mean, should I keep going or what are we doing here? Like, why do I have to defend this player? Please, put this man in the Hall of Fame ASAP. He's not a first ballot Hall of Fame player. We get it. Major point. But come on, it's been long enough. Give this man the badge of honor that he deserves. I'll be watching Honors Committee.